you ever did.
So the person that took off would be disappointed. I don't know who it was now. Some wires and he's running the double off the ground. But at that time,
Slater, you asked him 3 times what he wanted, but he wasn't starting. But I know you asked him.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome once again to the Nik Stuart Awards dinner. That's your signal for the last few people to get parked on the nearest seat. Thank you. It is significant this evening that our numbers are increasing. We're well over 90 people. And that means our average age is falling. So it's official, we're getting younger. It's important this evening that the personality and spirit of Nik Stuart remains relevant, and during this evening we will recap on what Nik may have regarded as simple adventures, but which sport history will record as a man leading the way in the development of sporting careers and sporting personalities. Nik Stuart may not have started his own perfume or his own underwear brand, but in sporting terms, Nik's secrets will always have a value far, far ahead of Victoria's. As in previous years, eating and drinking and making merry will precede the awards. I point out the silent auction on your left. This is the sneaky part of the evening where you can wander over with a pen hidden in your hand and put a bid in for the items that you want to take home. Sorry, that table over there. I was just trying to confuse you. This table is the raffle. Some nice prizes there. There's a few things that seem to keep coming back, but they're good prizes. Someone will get the 2010 diary one day. The announcement. This is 17 years we've been doing this. It's never perfect. We keep trying, but we're getting there. So give us another 17 and it will probably be first class. As in previous years, I'll introduce you to the chairman in a moment. We have to announce a short time ago the death of a former FIG president, Bruno Grandi. It was met with great sadness in the gymnastics world for a man who did so much to keep the ideas of inclusive sport and the interests of the vast reservoir of gymnastic activity underneath the superstars. He kept it on the agenda and he kept plugging away at it. Sadly, in the past year, we have also lost Bill Slater, Jim Moss, Joan Jackman. Difficult to imagine where we would have been without these people. But this evening is about celebration. The Nik Stuart Awards are about recognising unique and great contributions to our sport by exceptional people at all levels. May I introduce now Mike Swallow, Chairman of the Nik Stuart Foundation. Thank you, sir. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you a warm welcome to the 17th Annual Nik Stuart Foundation Dinner and Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We are pleased to welcome our honoured inductees into the Nik Stuart Foundation Hall of Fame. Let us remind ourselves why we are here this evening, and that is to honour the name of Nik Stuart. For many of us, our mentor. I think the citation on the diplomas says it all. The Foundation honours Nik Stuart MBE, who through his philosophy, ideals and interests served his country with distinction and inspired all those who came in contact with him throughout the world towards self-improvement and physical education. A renowned ambassador, gymnast, diver, acrobat and lecture demonstrator par excellence, and the father of modern gymnastics in Britain. And to award and induct into the Hall of Fame those who by example have similarly distinguished themselves, inspired and benefited others. So I wish you all a pleasant evening, an enjoyable evening, and I would like now to hand you back to our Master of Ceremonies, the Vice Chairman of the Nik Stuart Foundation, Mr. Trevor Lowe. Reverend Lucy Arledge, please, for grace.
So let us pray. Almighty God, Creator and Lord of all, I pray for us all as we gather under the banner of our sport. This evening we remember and give thanks for Nik Stuart and all that he means to us. We also call to mind those unable to join us this evening and those who are not here because they have died. We give you thanks, Lord, as we welcome and celebrate tonight's heroes and stars. We give thanks for everyone who keeps our sport alive and vibrant for the next generation. And now as we prepare for our evening of festivity and fun, Lord, I ask you to bless the food we shall eat and our time together as we catch up, reminisce, and call to mind all those who have inspired us. Lord, I ask this on behalf of us all. Amen.
So, if we can find a Maitre D, bon appetit. Okay? Perhaps have heard of Nik Stuart, and for the others, he's a mystery. But it seems like a long time ago. In actual fact, Nik's position in the history and the legends of gymnastics is very unique. Yuri Titov, one of the great Soviet gymnasts, once said that if Nik Stuart had been born Russian, he would have been world champion without any question. Our British gymnastics heroes, certainly formidable talents, but Nik was born with something very unique. He had to defy the vacuum of the post-war resources, which were very, very thin. In his time, coaches really did turn up at competitions with mats, springboards and pommel horses in the back of their cars. British championships, you were carrying in equipment as you went. New movements were learned with almost total disregard for risk assessment. Matting at times was no more than carpet. No two events were on the same equipment. Indeed, the standardisation of apparatus came relatively late in the development of European and World Championships. These standards and the FIG judging code was actually driven by Great Britain. Nik's European silver medal on floor, and 2 years later, 5th overall in the Europeans, was in the face of a sport that was turning away from the Swedish and German dominance to Russian government-funded programs pretending to be fitness for health and war. For hundreds of years, gymnastics had been a core activity for military fitness all across the world. It was used in the British Army during the formative years of physical training. You have to go back past a couple of world wars and into the heat of the day when Indian recruits to the British Raj Army were turning somersaults and climbing ropes with sometimes quite deadly results. Harold Davis, a famous gymnast from the past, once told me that on a course he attended in India, 2 of the recruits died. It was a dangerous business. Nik, and at that time, Army School of Physical Training, added talent and skill to the process, and at its peak, the Army were absolutely unbeatable. The Irish Troubles, 1967 to 92, and the need to modernise the concept of fitness saw the Army's decline as a team. Nik and the Army boys still carried the flag for gymnastics, and it was not until Neil Thomas that a major medal again was won, floor at the World Championships. Nik retained world respect throughout his life, and without question, the total loyalty of his disciples, those who followed and watched and wanted to be as good as he was. It says here now, ladies and gentlemen, tea and coffee will be served, so let's hope that's going to happen. We're going to make 2 awards now, which have been delayed, sometimes a couple of years, but this happens because the top gymnasts are booked and top coaches are booked to places years ahead. They keep changing the dates of World Championships, and it's sometimes hit and miss whether we can get anyone here at the right time. The first award that is belated was for the Spirit of Gymnastics Diploma of Distinction, and the recipient is not here, Lewis Smith, MBE, England, Great Britain. The incredible medal haul and success of Lewis Smith does not require a written citation or an introduction. There was not an Olympic, World, European, Commonwealth or British event that he did not demonstrate a unique ability and talent which makes him one of the legendary gymnasts of pommel horse. He was the first of the GB gymnasts to build a cultural media following, which brought fame and spotlight, which we now understand can be a very deadly two-edged sword. the spotlight never goes out. His television and celebrity status pushed him to strictly busy business, and as the show must go on, he's on the stage as we speak in Spain in the show Rip It Up, which is a 1960s music and dance show, and it's an absolute sellout. The sooner they get it here in Britain so we can see Lewis compete, the better. I missed it. Back in the West End, there you are. Rip It Up, not so much stock layer as chassis, and thankfully not crashy as he did on the snow slopes. I do not think that the body of gymnastics in Britain have the faintest idea of the importance of Lewis Smith. He remains underestimated and his achievements demand the greatest respect. His bronze medal at the Beijing Olympics 2008 saved the funding arse of our sport, 100%. Catastrophic results at world level destroyed what we were doing. Lewis managed to salvage something which was a lifeline which allowed us to come back onto the world stage. When the Jamaican-American Bob Beamon jumped 29 feet 2.5 inches, 1968 in Mexico, the great Welsh and British long jumper Lynn said, at that moment, we all packed our bags and wanted to go home. Lewis Smith's name on the start list on a pommel final had the same effect. In Beijing and London, Lewis delivered the very best he could do. No one then thought that driven by a dream of gold, he would return to the Olympic arena in Rio. There is not a competitor in the world who did not feel for him when a technical 10th shattered that dream. Those who thought him unsportsmanlike for not cheering have no idea what motivates someone to train for 4 years and with the sight of a gold medal. It could have been his, 1/10, and it wasn't. His determination and dedication to the ultimate prize is something that Nick would have applauded. So please, Lewis is not here, so we're going to ask his coach Paul Hall to come up and collect the trophy for him.
I wish Lewis was here because he'd probably do a much better speech than I could ever do. He'd entertain you far better. I think Lewis's career, his whole career has always been about entertaining, but I'm glad that the people in this room are of an age where they can remember Lewis as a gymnast rather than a competitor on Strictly Come Dancing. Lewis is currently on a tour, as Trevor said. He did Rip It Up here 1950s, a couple of years ago. He moved on to the 60s. Last year, and I believe this year, he's on the 70s, and I, for one, as his coach, can't believe that at 30 years old he's stage dancing 6 shows a week and having a wonderful time. But he always reflects fondly on his gymnastics career. I'd love to be able to share a few stories with Lewis, about Lewis, but I don't think there are many that are acceptable for the audience that I'm with. If anybody cares to speak to Mike Weinstock at some point in the evening, he can tell you about 2006 Commonwealth Games, and there are other people that can talk about some of the other campaigns that we've had. But I just remember Lewis as a big gangly, gawky person that came in at 8 years old to my club with ADHD, very hyperactive, and always getting into trouble. And I always used to send him to the pommel horse because it was the only piece where we could contain him, doing hundreds and hundreds of circles. He was always being punished with more and more circles, and because he was so naughty, he actually got better. And I think that's probably the main attribute for his Olympic medals. But he was a great character. His mum was an even better character. She came to see me when he was about 10 years old and said, "Paul, I'm in despair because Lewis has got a scholarship to Peterborough Cathedral Boys Choir, and I don't know what to do. They want him there 3 or 4 times a week and he loves his gymnastics. What should I do? And it was one of those pivotal moments where I thought, should I send this guy to the choir or should he stay in gymnastics? And I don't know if it was the right decision, but he stuck with gymnastics. He did kind of well. But he does have a good voice. And then he progressed on. He did so many good things and so many bad things as well, but really did represent the sport so well. And it was a privilege for me to be able to work with such an immense talent. We all know that people that get to Olympic standard are never normal people, and Lewis was certainly not normal, but it was a wonderful opportunity for me to see how he went. And he was one to always challenge and to always ask questions. I remember we had a drugs talk about all of the pitfalls of drugs before we went out to Beijing, and WADA came down. They spoke to him for 1 hour about nandrolone and testosterone and steroids and all the things, and I could see that it was a little bit over his head. But never afraid to ask a question at the end of this 1 hour lecture from the top drugs people. They said, if you've got anything that we need to explain more, then we can do that. And Lewis put his hand up and he said, can you tell me what prohibited means? And I knew I had a challenge on my hand, but the fact that he went to 2008, and I remember so well 2008, that first Olympic experience, so fascinating, you know, that with all the history we have of British gymnastics and how we've been to Olympics and we've always been participants, but we've never actually fought for a medal. I think that belief was what was lacking. And the one thing with Lewis is that when he was 13 or 14 years old, he went to a national squad. And he had a meeting with his coaches, and they asked him what his targets were in gymnastics. And he said, without a flicker, he said, I want to win an Olympic medal. And some of those people laughed at him. And I think that was one of the biggest spurs to Lewis actually really pushing and wanting to prove people wrong. He's been wanting to prove people wrong for so many years, and I think he's done just that. So he went to 2008, and he had no expectation. We had a hope, and I remember going to the final of the Olympic Games with a small chance of actually doing well. Quite a big moment when you're sort of lining up, ready to march out to the biggest competition of your career. I went to the toilet. I needed to go to the toilet. And when I came back, there was no sign of Lewis. Everybody was lined up, all the 8 finalists, 7 finalists, behind the flag, ready to march in to the Olympic Stadium, and I couldn't see Lewis. And I was looking everywhere. The music was on. They were ready to go. I stood by the podium in the warm-up gym, looking around, and all of a sudden the curtain opened and a hand shot out from underneath the podium and grabbed my leg. And that was Lewis playing a trick about 30 seconds before he's about to march out to win his bronze medal in the Olympic Games. So that's the kind of thing that I've had to deal with as a coach, but he was a great person, and I know he's upset at not being able to be here to share this with you. And thank you, Trevor, for those wonderful words for Lewis, and I hope that he can continue to inspire people in different spheres. Thank you.
Just on that, I spoke to Bruno Grandi after the 2012 Olympics, and he said he thought it was most unfair that somebody should have the same score and not win the gold medal. And it went back on countback. And when you look at it, in swimming you have a tie for gold medal. In athletics, somebody wins the 100 metres. If it's a dead heat, you don't go back and look at the semi-finals or the fastest time. And why we can't have dead heats in gymnastics, I just don't know. I just think it's unfair. And I feel for Lewis.
Can I ask Brian to come and join Mike, please? Our next award has been held over for a couple of years. It's the Lifetime Achievement Diploma and Diploma of Honour, which is being presented for the services of Bill Slater, England and Great Britain. 44 goals in League, England and GB football matches. 7 goals for England amateurs at a time when top players caught the bus home after the match. 1 goal for Great Britain and 12 England caps. In 1982, Bill Slater was appointed an OBE for his services to sport. A CBE followed in 1998. As the father and coach of a super talented champion gymnast, and an executive of the Sports Council, Bill brought a unique wealth of knowledge and insight into the future for British gymnastics. His presidency of British Gymnastics came at a time when funding for sport changed dramatically and passed from token funding to a measured process of development and success, but quangle control. This required intelligent, strategic, political discussion and credibility. Our position as a sport in the new world was secured by Bill Slater and his team. So, can I ask that talented daughter, Barbara, to come up and collect the trophy for me?
Just to say a few words, my dad loved his time with gymnastics, and I think he was so proud to bring all of his experience, as you said, Sports Council and others, to help the sport. And I'm very proud that I helped provide that link, because as a young gymnast, I was at the Solihull Gymnastics Club, which is just local to here. And I went down for a sort of national squad training or a review, and I was kicked out of the squad. So I found myself on the pretty miserable, arriving back in Brum, to have to tell my parents that I had been kicked out of the national squad. And at this point, my father had, of course, a huge track record in the world of physical education. He was at Birmingham University, and he ran the physical education department there. And I remember him looking up from his papers. What? Kicked out of the national squad? We can't have that. And from that day on, he was my coach. And we used to go to Birmingham University, and he used to bring all his physical education knowledge, and I won my place back in the national squad, thanks to my dad. And I'm just, we had a fantastic time. Loved the sport, he loved the sport, and I'm just so pleased that maybe that chance of being thrown out of the national squad got my dad involved in the sport, and I know he loved his time and was very proud, Trevor, as you were saying, to be able to bring some of his experience, if you like, of the sort of politics of sport to help gymnastics secure some of the funding that he did. So there we go. Thank you so much for this award for recognising my dad.
Ask for the assistance of Nicola Stuart and Phil, please. Nicola, Phil, we need your help. Phil. We see on the floor of this award ceremony people from the top levels of gymnastics, people who have won gold medals and bronze medals and all sorts of wonderful things. But we must also recognise that the sport of gymnastics is a very huge department. It has this little cream of 5% of people at the top, and it has this vast body of people underneath. And all of that has to be serviced by dedicated, knowledgeable professionals and enthusiasts. Our next award is the Nik Stuart Memorial Award, and this award is going to Lynn Hammersley of Forest Dean Gymnastics Centre. Lynn, a qualified PE teacher, was approached by a few parents who were asking for gymnastics for their children. Lynn thought a gymnastic club was a good idea, and she was spot on, because 43 years later she is still the driving force behind the Forest of Dean Gymnastics Club, which trains at the incredibly successful gymnastics centre at 5 acres in Colford, with over 400 members. All these years later, Lynn still puts in 50, 60 hours a week, managing the centre in the mornings and coaching in the evenings. The club started at Berry Hill Primary School, just after the Olga Korbik era, when everyone was watching gymnastics on TV, almost for the first time. But as numbers and equipment grew, they moved to Royal Forest of Dean College Gym. The dream of a dedicated gymnastics centre saw funding for 11 years. And in 1994, with the help of a £100,000 Foundation of Sport grant, the dream became a reality. A lottery grant followed, and with their own fundraising efforts 2 years later, they moved into the fully equipped purpose-built gymnastics and fitness centre at 5 acres. Absolutely packed with Olympic apparatus, and the place they still call home today. There are currently 10 qualified coaches at the centre, and growing. More coaches, more children, and Lynn is still there driving it on. A few years ago, they took a trip to the Nadia Comaneci Centre in Romania, and then to Florida to compete in the Magical Classic. Fitness is a key part of most sports, of course. Gymnastics is no exception, and Lynn is very proud of the centre's fitness Fit Zone gym, which is open to the entire community. There were many gymnastic centres funded in the early days of the lottery, and since then also sporting and capital grants have been pushed into good and dedicated facilities and gymnastic halls all across the country. But remarkably few of those have remained not-for-profit, and you can count on one hand how many of those funded, government-funded, lottery-funded centres actually put their hand up and said, I want to help gymnastics overall. Forest of Dean hosted the Junior Commonwealth Games at their expense. They provided the volunteers. The Junior Commonwealth Tournament, Wales, Scotland, South Africa, Canada, Australia, India and Malaysia all turned up in Forest of Dean Gymnastics Centre. Cost to the event, zero. The input, you can never calculate just how much of a boost that was to the men's programme at a time when things were not going terribly well. This was passion and this was loyalty for the sport and a real willingness to share what government funding had brought to them. Please welcome Lynn and Hammersley.
I have a lot to thank for those competitions, Trevor, for. 6 weeks after we opened the gym centre, Trevor phoned up. I didn't really know Trevor that well, but he said, I've got this little competition. It's in about 6 weeks' time, and we'd just opened. We'd come out of the school. We'd never run a gym centre before. And he said, don't worry, I'll do all the organisation, I'll help, I'll bring countries. You just arrange the accommodation and the food and everything else and that, and I'll bring the gymnasts. Next thing, and I need national anthems for each of the country. And a little competition, just a junior international. I think that happened 3 years running, including the junior men's British as well, or something. And all these famous people were in my gym, and I didn't have a clue who they were, because I wasn't really working at that level. As Trevor said, getting into gymnastics was an accident. and I think probably some parents feel that way as well. It was just a chance comment from somebody who said, "You were a PE teacher, weren't you? We just moved house, we were doing up the house, my husband was doing all the work. We had 2.5-year-old twins, and I was doing an Open University degree." And this person made the comment about, "My daughter and all her friends are throwing cartwheels all over the garden. Could you sort of start a gymnastics class?" Note the word class. And, well, 44 years later it is. We have a £1 million gymnastics centre. We have over 400 gymnasts. I'm not sure that we've still got 10 coaches, we're really short of coaches. But I feel very, very privileged both to be here tonight, and a big thank you to Hilary, Alan, Trevor, Mike and everyone that's organised tonight. I feel very, very humble amongst such wonderful people here, everybody who's given their life to gymnastics. And I feel very privileged to have been part of the gymnastics family, and also very, very privileged to be a part of so many children's lives. I still get people knocking on my door, because I'm in the office in the morning. I actually sit on a chair in the morning, and they'll knock on my door and they'll say, "Hi, remember me?" And there's usually a few tears on both sides as people come back, and I know every gym coach will know this. They'll come in and then they'll say, "Oh, I'm doing, what's the latest one? Trapeze and rope work." Another one, I started a gym club in my primary school. I've started a nursery gym club in America, and it just starts all right with grassroots, and all those little bits of the Forest of Dean have gone across the world, and just thank you very much for everybody who's supported me along the way. And thank you for tonight.
So while we've got your attention, just something that's quite important to do. A lot of things in television, all the gongs being dished out to house cleaners and failed diplomats. Let's have a look around the room here. If you have an MBE, an OBE, CBE, stand up please. How many MBEs, OBEs, CBEs do we have in the room? Alan's standing already. Yeah, so gymnastics gets a fair share, but possibly not enough. We're not doing enough cleaning, I think that's what it is. Coffee is out the back. A short comfort break. Stampede begins now. 10 minutes. 45 cups and 2 kettles of hot water. Is there a problem?
No, not till you check out.
UK Diploma of Honour. A short time ago, can I have Mike and Sue, please? Sue? Mike and Sue? A short time ago, Paul Hall accepted the responsibility of becoming the GB men's national coach. He's coached at 2 Olympic Games, 5 World Championships and 8 European Championships. Why is he so successful as a coach? 2 answers. Firstly, he knows his gymnasts and he brings out the best in them at the right time. Secondly, he has never been afraid to look and learn, observing other coaches, best techniques, and never saying, "Oh yes, but." He's looked and he's thought, "That's clever, but I can use that even better." He's made more of what other people have achieved and have done. He takes techniques, improves them, applies them to the gymnasts with a sharpness and effectiveness that moves the performances on. From an education at King John's School in Seavick, Benfield, he studied sport and exercise. He did his gymnastics apprenticeship in challenging situations and in 1994 migrated to Huntingdon, where the legendary Terry Sharpington placed immense trust in him and ensured that Paul's talent was encouraged and fed. Terry himself had a girls' team that was breaking new ground with Lisa Mason, a European finalist, Commonwealth medalist, and Sydney 2000 finalist. Her bars was the finest of his day. This is an example that Paul was driven by, and he created his own barnstorming team. Too many to list, far too many to list. They're just endless numbers of gymnasts. We have to say Lewis Smith, total legend, silver medal, bronze medal, Olympic. Dan Keatings, all-around silver medal, 2009 Worlds. Luke Falwell, Commonwealth champion. John Much, a champion of outstanding ability and success in a relatively short career. The girls as well. Marissa King, Olympian. This is a man who could turn his ability as a coach to anyone who wanted to do gymnastics. As a gymnastic coach, consultant, and skills entrepreneur, from 1990 to the present, over 30 years, he has balanced his club and national coaching commitments alongside being technical consultant for national programs in Scotland, Finland, Australia, and South Africa. Speaking about his appointment, Paul said, "I hope my role will help to provide the necessary leadership and direction that is needed to consolidate our place as one of the leading nations in men's gymnastics for the Tokyo Games and beyond." I believe that Paul will do far more than consolidation. His creative thinking and instinct for personal coaching will take GB to a higher level. Please welcome to the stage Paul Hall, MBE.
Oh dear me, again, 2 speeches in one night. What have you done to deserve that? I think I have to take issue with what Trevor said. There was one more reason as to why I've had a little bit of success in this sport, and that's a very long-suffering and beautiful understanding wife. So, I think, all of us men that have been involved in this sport for a long time will echo those sentiments that we need that support and the family behind us. That's been very great. I've had a wonderful journey. It's been a massive privilege to have been involved in this sport for 40 plus years. I started off, probably you'll recognise the same sort of story as this obsessive, crazy young guy that climbed trees and jumped over bridges and fences and did all sorts of things and couldn't contain his enthusiasm for sport. Found himself in a gymnastics club. Mine was Castle Point Gymnastics Club. Anybody know that one?
Yes, yes.
Down in Essex with Barbara Hayes and Alan Hayes. Remember those? Alan was my coach, and he was a great role model and inspiration to me. And I think that's one of the themes for tonight, is that it's so lovely for me to be here. And this award, I think, is about 9 years out of date. I think I received this award in 2010. So it's taken me 9 years to get to this stage, to actually be here. I've always been very interested and intrigued as to what goes on at the Nik Stuart Memorial. And I've been pleasantly surprised to see so many friends, so many names, so many people, and so many reputations. And I think that's a very important thing in our sport. We can never underestimate, I know in my case, we can never underestimate the importance of people that came before us. And I think about now myself, Mitch Fenner, Terry Sharpington, Lloyd Reedhead, still working. So many inspirational people that inspired me and allowed me to do the things that I was able to do because I was in the right place at the right time. That's something that we all have to recognise, that we're in a certain time, a certain historic moment, and we're all part of that success. So it was a privilege when I got to 2003 and we had a low point. I've been involved with the sport about 15 years and we came 23rd as a nation, 23rd, which was pretty bad. And I remember Trevor and a small group of crazy obsessive people like myself sitting down, not giving up, but thinking about what can we do. And out of the ashes of 23rd place, we got a group of people together that could actually work with obsession, with craziness, with tenacity. We found some talented kids. And we had a belief that we could actually do something. And slowly, we went to 2007. I was fortunate enough to get a few guys, Lewis and Daniel, to the Olympic Games in Beijing. Lewis won a medal. And from that, things grew. Money came. We went to 2012. 4 medals in London. 2016, 7 medals in Rio. An incredibly fantastic time. But only possible because of you guys, because of all the stuff that went on before, because of the fact that when I was a kid, I would miss school on a Friday morning so that I could watch Nik Stuart on his little programme on a Friday morning. I'd pretend to be ill so that I could see him swinging around the bar. We all did stuff like that. And I would obsessively go to gym, do as much as I can, go to find knowledge in Russia from so many other people because I was desperate to actually do something, to be the best and to try and mix in with the greatest people in gymnastics. So it's a real privilege for me to have been involved with that and to move forward now in my role as a head national coach so that we can continue to produce results. Great to be here. Thank you for all your support and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Reminisce.
Can I ask for the assistance of Hilary and Brian, please? So, we've had the performer without a name, aka Prince. We have 007, aka James Bond. James Bond, not Jemima Bond, James Bond. We had the Invisible Man, who, well, nobody ever saw him, he was invisible. But today, we have to think of Mr. R, aka Bootsy. Even after a lifetime career in gymnastics, Bootsy stubbornly remains the nicest man in gymnastics. He is such a pleasant man to be with that the NHS fitted him with a zip fastener a year ago, so anyone who wants to see the art of gymnastics can get an easy look. I cannot think of a time when I have not come away from a meeting with Kieth that hasn't lifted my spirits and returns me to the fun of simply being in gymnastics. He has coached at the highest levels of performance in both men's and women's gymnastics. Some of Great Britain's greatest world, Olympic and Commonwealth team gymnasts passed through his hand. Kieth played a vital part in the careers of Terry Bartlett, Ian Shelley, Roman Edwards, and was the coach to Kelly Sim, Benny Hoss, Jenna Sanders and Kerry Upton. In the early days of Southampton, Kieth was one of the first coaches to identify the values of preschool gymnastics in both generic sport development as well as commercial programming. He helped drive that club to over 1,000 members. In 1979, that was absolutely vast and unheard of in this country. Kieth was a coach seeking answers, and his association with the legendary Moscow Dynamo endures to this day. He remains a vice president of Moscow Dynamo. He remains an active coach, tutor and mentor to the new era of coaches. So who remembers Alfie Bass and Bill Fraser, Bootsy and Snudge? Please welcome Bootsy but no Snudge, Kieth Richardson.
I really didn't think I was going to have to make a speech this evening. All I've got to say, really, to keep it short, is I'm just privileged to be part of the Nik Stuart ripple effect. My coach came out of the Army School of Gymnastics, which he was in with all the greats that were there, Jimmy and Mickey Munn and all those. We used to go up to the Army School of Physical Training on a Sunday morning, and I was pretty well known as the cartwheel that lumbered into the gym to try and do gymnastics. My coaching career has developed better than my gymnastics ever did, but still privileged to be part of this man's legacy. So thank you very much, all of you that have supported me, and thank you for this. It's a great privilege.
Can I ask Mike and Tanya to come forward, please? This is a Lifetime Achievement Diploma and Diploma of Honour. Barbara Slater was born into a sporting family, and she could have been a national class diver or a squash player, but gymnastics won the day, and in GB she climbed up to runner-up position in the British Championships and a regular member of the GB international team. Barbara was in amongst the most elite performance at the height of her career, earning a coveted FIG pin in 1976, along with Avril Lennox, the first FIG pin since Nik Stuart had won his. Pins at that time, FIG pins, little lapel badges, were almost reserved by USSR, East Germany and Romania, and to have Britain picking them up was unheard of in that time. Barbara represented Great Britain at the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal, where she actually carried the British flag at the opening ceremonies. She appeared in a BBC children's programme and later moved behind the man behind the camera as a producer and director. She was the BBC's head of production and head of general sports for a number of years. So let's put this into perspective. At that time, all levels of broadcasting in sport were a tradition dominated by men. Barbara's professionalism, knowledge and vision forced a rethink, and she became the obvious choice as the BBC's first female director of sport in April 2009. There was no great media, political lobby or pressure movement at that time helping her on. It was absolute ability to be the best and create the best that put her in this leading position. Following the BBC's successful broadcast of the 2012 Summer Olympics, the biggest television event in British broadcasting history, Barbara was awarded the Inspirational Woman Prize of the award in film and TV. She was appointed Officer of the Order of British Empire in the 2014 Birthday Honours List. During her time as Director of Sport, she had to manage the erosion of BBC's monopoly of exclusive BBC sport deals, from Formula One to the Grand National. Even the Open Golf had gone. As Auntie fought off the reality of Sky TV, Air to View and all manner of cable and internet-led delivery, Barbara remained loyal to the Beeb, fighting their corner with passion and quality. As a gymnast and as a professional programme maker, Barbara Slater is a legend. Please welcome Barbara Slater.
oh dear me again. Really quickly, two things I wanted to say. Firstly, as a gymnast that maybe took part in an era when we participated, to have witnessed what British gymnastics has achieved is just extraordinary as somebody who has been involved and a massive fan of the sport. When you think in 2016, you mentioned 7 medals, more than China. I mean, British gymnastics, I bow down to so many of you in this room that have delivered a truly transformational success. I mean, it is extraordinary, and I cannot think of another sport which has achieved such a dramatic change in the success that it's delivered on the international stage. Absolutely. I bow down. And so many of you I know in this room have been behind that. Secondly, I just want to speak and say something about gymnastics. Because what a brilliant school it is for life. And I mean, I now might run a department at BBC with 500 people or whatever. And there's rights, and there's dealing with Bunyakas and Formula One and all of those kind of things. There is nothing I have ever done in my professional life that compares with gymnastics. It just teaches you resilience, toughness. It's a family. It's like we're all sort of in it together, and even though maybe I'm slightly more distant from the sport now, whenever I come back and I ever end up in a gymnastics arena, it kind of feels like I'm coming home. And I think the other thing you mentioned, I wasn't going to go on a sort of, as you say, a first woman director of sport. I was privileged to be in a sport that's always treated everybody equitably. Women have never been a poor relation in gymnastics. We've been truly equal partners in this sport. And when I arrived in the BBC Sports department, it never entered my head that I might be some kind of inferior because I was a woman. I mean, that is not what gymnastics taught me. Gymnastics treated me, and I think all its female athletes equally. And honestly, I just think that gave me an attitude of mind that has truly helped me get to where I am today. So I have so much to say thank you to gymnastics for. And I'm sure that there are many, many people who've gone on and done lots of different things in life that will have taken the lessons that they learnt in this sport and hopefully use them to good effect. So thank you, gymnastics.
So can I call on Mike and Alan? Yeah, just
vertically challenged.
Hillary is after your job, Barbara.
Well, if you
So we come to our final award. We will do the raffle and the silent auction at the end, just before the chaos. But we now come to the last award, the International Diploma of Honour. Way back in the early 70s, before Olga Korbitism made gymnastics famous, much of our technical understanding of gymnastics came from German sources. Despite occasional hostilities, the two nations continued to have cultural and sporting links that fueled enthusiasm and progress. As a young trainee teacher, Dietrich Spiegel arrived in Scotland to perfect his English, which still suffers to this day from the tones and inflections of Glasgow school playgrounds. But Dietrich's gymnastics background was impeccable, and his holistic knowledge in physical education and his technical knowledge of the pedagogy of gymnastics was much sought after by gymnasts much more accustomed to the coaching style, have a go laddie and I'll catch you if I finish my fag. Dietrich was drawn into gymnastics in Scotland, and soon he was translating from German texts for John Atkinson at British schools and later British gymnastics. Dietrich was a direct link to a German colleague at a time when Eberhard Ginger was pushing Russia and Japan on the world stage. His club perhaps remains part of the longest running club exchange in GB German history. Hinckley and TV Bochum, 47 years, it's been a regular exchange of two clubs back and forward. His club gymnasts have retained regular places in the German national squads during that period. Dietrich has delivered theatrical gymnastic events as well as competitions in the German League. In 2018 he was responsible for delivering the 3rd World Championship of Gymnastics for people with Down syndrome, an unknown possibility in Germany up to that point, and the start of a new gymnastics movement in the traditional heartland of gymnastics. Please welcome Dietrich Spiegel.
Just very short. Thank you very much. I was really flattered and touched when I got this phone call, and all this has got a lot to do with Trevor naturally, and a lot to do with Alan, because when I started my career in Scotland, indeed the first thing I learned what a Brobrecht Moonlicht Necht is. I bet most of you don't know what that means. A broad bright moonlight every night. Yeah, I was told, first of all, make sure no English people come north. Keep the English south. And I was very impressed by the first schools I went to as assistant teacher, and I learned that kilts are part of school uniform from time to time. But then I got involved in gymnastics, and I got involved with the German, the Scottish junior national team. And naturally we had to go south, and I met this gentleman, and he showed, as one of the important coaches at that time, together with John Atkinson, what Scottish gymnasts still had to learn. Right, that was a great school, and that kept me in contact with these people, and I love to be back here again. I'm quite regularly in the south of England now, more than in Scotland, unfortunately, because it's not so far away. And I'm very much in touch with the school there, and I love to be here. Thank you very much for this honor, and a good evening for you all.
So, just a little bit of housekeeping before we pull the raffle tickets. All the award winners, if you at the end, before you start signing autographs, can you collect over by the pictures over there? We're going to get a group photograph of all the award winners at the end. So, have we got the raffle tickets? No. Have you got 90 cups?
They've been raffled.
We're going to do the silent auction. Table 9, LO, has to bring £2 for a pug. Lot number 9. Alma, woo, £40. Commonwealth Games sweatshirt. Lot 13. YG, table 4. No, YG, table 1. Lot number 4. 3? All right, YG 3. YG 3, lot number 4, Mexico Olympic plate. BH, lot 15, 2010, book and pen. Anyone remember who? Table 1, BH. BH, definitely BH. All right. PL-S, table 2, lot number 7, a koala bear. YG has got a Parker pen. Chasing Gold Book, MW, table 4. Soffenau top, JC, table 1. BAS, table 1, your pajama case is ready. You will never get your pajamas in there. I think we insist on watching you try. Okay, LH, table 2. Back away, original drawing. The Rip It Up show program, KA, table 9. And finally, lot number 10, a Spaniel, LO, table number 9. Oh yes, you can collect your silent auction items now. Sorry, I misunderstood what was being said. Bear with us just a moment and we'll have raffle. Yes, you get you. Yeah, well, you like to take it, but you've got to give it to them over there. It's a greeny blue turquoise. 113. All right, green 113, blue 113.
Anybody with 113?
No? It's got something to do with 90 cups, hasn't it? Right, this is definitely orange 294. 294 on the orange. 294. Someone must have 294. Oh, we got it. We got it.
It's you.
Wow, well, what a surprise. Orange 284. 284, orange, Mike.
Champagne.
Not that one. It's orange again. 247. 247. It's a yellow ticket, 850. 850.
Any, choose.
850. Yellow, 822. Go on, Jimmy, the teddy bear over there for you. Yellow, 822. Yes, 822's on the way. Orange, 242. 242 on the orange.
Take your pick.
You got to choose something quick. For all this, blue ticket 152. Blue border 152, 152.
Go on.
152. Plain white ticket 514. 514. 514. Yes. Blue ticket 159. Blue border 159. Yo. Orange border 228. 228. White ticket 489. 489. Blue 186.
See you later.
It's a yellow background ticket, 838. 838 on a yellow ticket. Yes, oh, no entry, 5 minutes. Another yellow ticket.
That goes with it.
I don't want that.
Well, leave it there.
846. 846. White ticket 483. Struggling now. Orange. There it is. Orange 211. 211.
Where did this come from?
Blue 154.
Balances.
154.
I have to give it as a present to my children.
White ticket.
Was it yours?
502. 502. Yellow 823. Blue 171. Yellow 851.
You just take one. Me.
Yellow 846. 849. 849.
We trust you. This is a family.
Orange 275. Yellow 874. White 484. Orange 229. Sorry, 227. 227.
1, 2,
7.
2 left. 1 left.
We're going to the last prize. A set of 45 cups. On the blue, 187. 187. And finally, it's Mr. Swallow.